Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote. This is the weekly show where we introduce you to some of the best indie creators from all over the world, and we find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of And I Quote channel, and our guests on this episode is, if I'm remembering this right, and I'm having the records set straight in front of me, this is the first time in history of this channel and this program that we've had a brother and sister writing duo. Now, I am in shock. I am shocked there are things going on in this establishment, but it's fantastic. It's history in the making, and we're glad that you, who may be watching or listening to this right now, are going to be along for an incredible ride. Please welcome Boyd and Beth Morrison are in the building. Hello, you two fine young people. How are we this morning or afternoon or wherever it may be?
Doing well this morning.
Yeah, it's morning out here in Los Angeles.
That's wonderful. That's great. 3-hour time difference between me on the East Coast and the West Coast. So some of us are living in the past. Some of us are in the future. I'm in the future, 2015. So just picture me in a floating DeLorean somewhere in Hill Valley, just hanging out somewhere Hill Valley's iteration of it on the East Coast anyway, because Hill Valley is originally in California. I apologize. My geography wasn't what it once was. But for those of you who are wondering, don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. And if you're watching this live or what is known as a replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions for Boyd and Beth during the course of the show, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. With all that piece of business out of the way, I'll start things off with Boyd first. Boyd, what were some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
Well, one of my favorite writers was a guy named Clive Cussler. I started reading him early in my interest in thriller novels, and he wrote these massive adventure epics that I just loved diving into. And then, crazily enough, 30 years later, I was writing with him. So I ended up writing 6 novels with Clive Cussler in the Oregon File series. And that never would have occurred to me when I was reading Raise the Titanic.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, man, mind's blown and we haven't even started yet. This is amazing. That is great stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong though. Clive Cussler, did he write the book series with Dirk Pitt where Sahara with McConaughey was based on?
Sahara.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I actually like, as a movie, I can't comment on the book's quality, but on the movie's quality, I like Sahara with Matthew McConaughey and Steve Zahn. I didn't mind it. I thought it was a fun adventure movie. Too bad they never made any sequels, but that's because the film bombed. But I liked it. Yeah,
well, it made a lot of money. It's just that it cost a lot of money. So that was the big problem.
Didn't break even, I'm supposing. That's unfortunate. McConaughey is so charismatic.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. But that's cool. Congratulations on collaborating and working with Clive Cussler. Goodness gracious, that's one of the biggest names in writing. Yeah, that's not just a little feather in one's cap. That's a huge sack of feathers.
Yes,
as one might say. But no, that's great stuff. What about you, Beth? Favorite writers or books growing up? Anything come to mind?
Well, when I was growing up, one of my favorite writers was Anne McCaffrey because she created these worlds about dragons that I just loved. And so it was particularly fun that in the most recent novel that Boyd and I wrote together, the dragon is one of the main characters.
Kind of fortuitous. Dragon world. I'm sorry. When I think one of the first things, two things come to mind when I think of the word dragon. Well, actually 3. There was Pete's Dragon that I watched when I was a very, very little kid. I don't know if anyone here remembers Pete's Dragon. Mm-hmm. But there was Pete's Dragon. There was a movie that no one saw. It was made way back in the early 90s. It was called Dragon World. It was like a indie film that was made. I remember watching that as a kid on VHS. And then the other thing that comes to mind is Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dragons there. Someone named Mother of Dragons, and then there was a red wedding, a white wedding, a black wedding. Everyone dies.
Yeah,
something like that. I don't know.
The book series Fourth Wing is huge, and I think it's going to be a big Amazon series.
Is it
coming up? Yeah,
I was not aware of that.
That's all about dragon riding school.
Oh my God. Dragon Riding School. Oh goodness. And then, eventually because this is happening as well. How to Train Your Dragon's getting a live action treatment. So
Yep.
yeah, you just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you?
And we just had to add our own dragon in there.
Yeah, you just had to throw in more dragons into the mix because if someone can be thrown into a lion's den, why not throw them into a dragon's lair?
Can never be too
we have a lion's den in the next book.
Oh, is that what you're gonna have? Because I'm okay with that if you have a lion's den in the next piece of the saga, because I don't mind lion's dens. Dragons I'm a little terrified of, but lions I don't mind.
Well, that in the White Fortress, which is our latest book, the whole point is that a dragon is going to come to the rescue of the. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right, interesting, Smithers. Fantastic stuff. But outside of the Sahara film that unfortunately did not pan out for certain people, McConaughey, Steve Zahn, Penelope Cruz, we still love you, honey. Boyd, favorite book to movie adaptations, or are there any that are remotely good?
One of the ones that I thought was done very well was The Firm by John Grisham. I thought the ending of that movie was better than the book. It was very clever how he wrapped it all up in the movie. And so I thought that was a very good adaptation.
Fair enough. I like legal thrillers too. Nothing wrong with that either. Any book to movie adaptations come to mind for you, Beth?
I was trying to think. I was thinking about one of the ones that I really enjoyed was a medieval tale that made it into a movie, was The Green Knight. And I liked how they sort of adapted it and made it much more modern, but still keeping the sort of medieval feel to it.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not really familiar with that one, but I may have to look that up at some point.
Is that the one with Dev Patel, Beth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe I remember seeing something about hearing, or maybe I remember seeing a piece of marketing material for that, Beth. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and dig through my memory files, which are not what they once were, because I'm getting way too old for this. But aside from that, Boyd and Beth, if you want to answer this together, or whoever wants to go first, what made you decide to become writers?
Well, I've always been a big reader, and it didn't occur to me until much later that maybe I could actually write my own story. But my story is that when I was getting my PhD, I was working for Kodak in Rochester, New York, and didn't really have anything to do in the evenings. And so my wife suggested taking a science fiction writing class from a Hugo Award-winning writer named Nancy Kress. And so I took the class, wrote a terrible short story for it, but thought, maybe novel-length books would be more my speed. And so I wrote my first novel, which ended up being The Catalyst. And I sent it to about 5 agents, didn't get anybody, and I kind of petered off from there. But my wife was looking to going to med school at that time. So we made a deal that I would put aside my writing for 9 years while she did pre-med, med school, and residency. And then when she was a practicing doctor, I would get to quit my job and have the same 9 years to try to make it as a published author. And I wrote 2 more books, and that third book is the one that eventually got published first.
9 years, goodness, great. It
was an investment.
I was gonna say that's a I mean, because I kind of mentioned this when we were chatting it up in the green room. That's a long time. I mean, that is just that seems like an eternity for some people. But with from what I've been told, at least over time, is that with every relationship or marriage, there comes a thing called patience and compromise. So it worked.
We invested in each other.
Yes, and it worked. It paid off. So congrats.
Yeah, it took me 5 years to get published after that, but I made it.
Well, there's an old saying: "Good things come to those who wait." So, at least that's what I've been told. Some people don't believe in that, and that's fine. To each their own. Those are some of the things I've learned over the course of my life. But still, wow, 9 years. I couldn't imagine that's so long. Beth, was it a 9-year wait for you, or was it a bit shorter? I'm just curious.
Well, my journey is very closely related to Boyd's. I mean, it started. I've written, I don't know, 8 academic books or whatever, because I'm an art historian by day. And it never occurred to me to think of writing fiction, I had always read Boyd's first drafts with a great deal of pleasure, and my red Sharpie ready to go, giving him ideas and whatnot. So we had always sort of enjoyed working together on his fiction, but in a very informal way. And then, Boyd, I think you can take over the part of the story how our collaboration happened.
Yeah. So again, my wife is critical to this story. When I left writing the Organ series with Clive Cussler, I was trying to decide what I wanted to write next. And one of the options was historical thriller. And I was telling my wife that, and she said, well, if you want to write a historical thriller, you've got a built-in co-author. And I said, who's that? And she said, your sister, who is a world expert on the Middle Ages. And I said, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. So I called up Beth and said, do you want to write with me, Beth?
Yes. So that's how our collaboration started. We started the collaboration was it 2018 or 2019, Boyd?
2018.
2018, we started drafting the idea for the story. And then it just took off from there, and it's been a great ride. We just published our third novel in the series, and we're working on the fourth.
My goodness. Yeah, good things come in threes. Trilogy, but forget trilogy. We're going to skip through. We give you your three flavors, but now we're going to give you a fourth because you got to have a quadrilogy.
Yes. And then we're working on, number 4 right now.
Is there a plan for more after book number 4? Or is it just well, let's just focus on one book at a time?
Yeah, we're trying to focus on one book at a time.
We'll pull a Kevin Feige and put together a multiverse or cinematic universe later.
If there's the multiverse coming, we'll worry about that later.
Oh, okay. One book at a time. Fair enough. It's best to, because it goes back to the story we heard when we were kids. Slow and steady always wins a race.
Yep.
Tortoise versus the hare. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody remember that story? I'm sure you do. Brian Thomas Donahue of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast is here with us. He says, congrats on this series, you two.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. Brian's a good friend of the show, good friend of the channel. Check him out and his crew over there at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Brian, good to see you. Hope everything's well in your neck of the woods, brother. Love you. But congrats. That's awesome. I mean, I don't think has this ever happened before? A brother and sister writing books together with all history, with all writers. I mean, I don't think this has really occurred, or maybe it has. Yeah. Maybe we just don't have the records to support it yet. Is that a fact?
Definitely not in the thriller genre. Mm-hmm. I don't know of any. I know Lee Child and Andrew Child write the Reacher series together now, yes. But they're brothers. And then I know a sister writing team, but I don't know of a brother sister. That's, I think, unique. I've never heard of that before.
Okay. So how does it feel to be the trendsetter and breaking down the doors and breaking down walls and making history?
We're hoping to open doors for all brother sister writing teams everywhere.
I was going to say, how does it feel to be put on a pedestal?
Well, back in the good old 80s when we were growing up together, I was actually convinced Boyd and I were going to win an Olympic gold medal in pairs figure skating. And that didn't work out.
It's get out of here.
Really?
I mean, besides the fact that neither of us knew how to ice skate, it was a little bit.
That's a little barrier.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, is the next thing you're going to tell me is that you were training at the time to be pairs pro skaters?
It was more just a vision.
Okay, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
But instead, we write books together, and I think that's even better.
It's a bit safer too. Don't have to worry about breaking a leg or hurting what do you call it? Spraining one's ankle or hurting your foot.
Oh, our career would have been over a long time ago.
Well. I don't want to say for sure. I'm just speculating here, but maybe I don't know. Yeah. I wasn't there. Remember,
oldest pairs figure skaters ever.
Pairs figure skate. Wow. Okay. All right. That just when you thought you've heard everything on this show. Once again, listen, I've heard some wild stuff, but it's awesome. We love hearing these stories. Once again, this is And I Quote with the guests of honor, Boyd and Beth Morrison. Don't forget to like and share this if you haven't done so already. If you're watching us live on the replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions for this aspiring pair of figure skaters, let us know in the comments or let us know in the chat. We're gonna have to take this as they come in respectively. Goodness gracious. Oh boy. Boyd or Beth, what are some of the biggest rewards about being a writer, do you think?
Well, I'd say that the best thing for me about this whole thing is getting to spend more time with Boyd, frankly. I mean, we talk about twice a day on the phone as we're plotting, and maybe Boyd can talk a little bit about the writing process, but I just think it's awesome to have a project like this outside of my regular workday that I really look forward to.
Yeah, and I live in Seattle and Beth lives in LA, so the ability to collaborate from afar is great. And we also research all of these books in person by going to Europe wherever we're setting the stories. So for The White Fortress, which is the book that's out, just came out, we went to Croatia and we toured around Split and Dubrovnik, and which are medieval, still old town medieval cities, so rich in medieval culture that Game of Thrones filmed all of the King's Landing scenes in Dubrovnik. So if you remember the shame scene where, Cersei Lannister is stripped naked and pelted with tomatoes as she walks down the stairs, that's in Dubrovnik.
And that actually also features in our novel.
We feature that as a little homage in the book.
And for those probably who have no idea what we're talking about, maybe we should talk, Boyd, about where the books are actually set. So our series follows a adventurous couple on their way through a quest to sort of regain the lands and the reputation of our main character, who's named Gerard Fox. And the books are set in the middle of the 14th century, because the 14th century is my particular area of specialty as a scholar. And so we just sort of picked up on that and went with it. And so our books are set in, 1350, 51, just years after the Black Death had ravaged Europe. And one of the interesting things is that, as I said, we started writing this series in 2018, and we had no idea how relevant our books would be in terms of understanding a worldwide pandemic that really altered life on a really, really fundamental level. So that was also really interesting to live through.
Perfect timing, fellas. Black Death. There's Black Death, and then I remember referencing another movie that has nothing to do with this one, and then someone gives him a sheet of paper and it has the black spot, and it's the black spot is the pirate's death sentence. Sorry, that's going back to Muppet Treasure Island. I watched that numerous times. I don't know if anyone's here is a Muppets fan, but I remember watching that numerous times when I was a kid, because reading the book is one thing, but when you see an adaptation of it put on by our good friend Jim Henson and company, it makes the story a lot more joyful. You see what I mean? And Tim Curry as Long John Silver is nothing to slight at either, right? I mean, that guy's been around for years and years and years, and he's one of the best in the world. Unfortunately, due to his health concerns and his health reasons, he can't really do appearances anymore. But Tim, our hearts go out to you, man, because you were a great Long John Silver, and you're also really good in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. There's another locale for you. And also good in Clue. Anybody remember Clue?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I go all the way back to Rocky Horror.
Yeah, Rocky Horror, yeah. But let's not forget about Wadsworth and Clue, though. It was, come on. Explaining the whole plot to everybody at the end. Come on, man. That's like, isn't that comedy gold to some people?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what. But by the way, that's what about Dubrovnik and the references you make to, or the little homage to it from that you make in your set of novels with Game of Thrones. That's cool. Wow. Yeah. It must have felt pretty cool being on, physical sets or physical locations that these films or TV shows were actually filmed on. It makes you feel like you're a part of the story in a way, right?
Yeah. And same for a lot of the other locations that we've featured in the stories, because for the first book, The Lawless Land, we went to England and France. And one of the places we visited and feature in the book is Notre Dame Cathedral. And we went there in 2019, just 2 months before the fire that almost destroyed it. And so we got to see it and feature it in the story. And what's really interesting about all the locations we feature is that they are still around 670 years later in virtually the same condition that they were at the time of our story. And so in the book, when they go to visit Notre Dame, they talk about how old it is because it's already 100 years old at that time.
Wow.
And so it's a lot of fun to feature places that you can still go to and imagine yourself in the location that our characters are in the book.
And some of the coolest feedback I've gotten on our novels so far is the same kind of thing that you were just talking about, Ryan, where people are like, oh, I read The Last True Templar and I went to Siena for the first time and I could imagine Fox and Willa in these places doing these things. And I was like, ooh, we have fans already who are like excited about being in the places that our book was set in. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's great. That's totally great for sure. I mean, my only reference to Notre Dame Cathedral was the animated Disney film, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, because the film is, by the way, to a certain degree, that's a criminally underrated film. And it came out during the Renaissance of Disney. And Disney, the Renaissance, as we all know, was one of the best periods of animation of all time. But the Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of the best underrated films that they put out because, yes, it's a bit of a deeper film. It's a bit of a darker film. But still, I mean, the way they filmed or the way they animated Notre Dame Cathedral, and you see all the ins and outs of the bell towers and the ceilings and the panels and the wood pit, everything, and all decorations too. It's like, oh my gosh, man, I want to visit this thing because this cathedral looks amazing, just even from an animation standpoint, and the music is iconic. So let's not forget about that. I mean, and I think it was what is Ellen Megan? Some of the composers are no longer with us, unfortunately, but still. I mean, did you use Hunchback of Notre Dame, the animated film, as a little bit of reference there, or do you kind of remember the Disney film from
Yeah, I mean,
prior?
I think one of the interesting things to think about all the great Disney films, not just during the Renaissance, but going all the way back, is if you think about it carefully, almost all of the really great ones actually are set in a medieval type world. One of my favorites, of course, is Sleeping Beauty. And the Disney animators actually looked at medieval works of art, and the sort of evil queen in that one is actually based on a sculpture I know very well. So it's really interesting that if you sort of think about that, and that's one of the reasons that Boyd and I wanted to set our books in the Middle Ages, is because people don't realize how many of the great tropes in writing come from the Middle Ages. Boyd was mentioning the Reacher series, and Lee Child has always talked about how Jack Reacher is essentially a medieval knight errant. And so is our medieval knight errant, but he's a real medieval knight errant. And you were talking a little bit earlier about Star Wars. Luke Skywalker is a knight errant. That is who he is. He has his sword, and he goes around in white and helps.
He's literally a knight, a Jedi knight.
But originally, he was just going to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Come on, kid, get to it. All right, come on. Sorry. Quotes are coming out of bound, but I digress. No, that's good stuff about Sleeping Beauty and the history behind that, and why they got the pieces of the costumes, or the era, or the history of it. Right. That is, in the words of our good friend Spock, fascinating. Opposite side of the coin, though. What are some of the biggest challenges about being a writer? Whoever wants to start.
Coming up with the stories. I mean, the writing actually doesn't take that long. It's the plotting that's really coming up with the characters. What are their motivations? How do they get from one place to another? Especially in our time period, they don't have Google Maps or can't hop on an airplane. So getting them from one city to another is always an issue. And then just making sure the plot makes sense and is exciting. That's what Beth and I plot our books together. And then when we have an idea, when we have a plan for a chapter, I'll write the chapter and then I'll send it to Beth, and then she'll edit it and send it back to me. And that's how we work. And most of the time we plot either in our cars or when we're walking our dogs and we're just on the phone talking to each other, and we're spitballing ideas and brainstorming. And that's, I would say 80% of our time is spent on that.
And of that 80% of time that we spend plotting, I think at least 50% of our time is figuring out how to make not too many coincidences. Because, if you can just construct the plot, you're like, oh, they happen to be in the exact place they need to be, or they happen to overhear, or such and such. And so trying to have it make sense and have all the pieces interlock without having too many coincidences, I think, is a big challenge for probably every writer, especially in the thriller genre.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I would assume so. That's very true. Yeah. Coming up with the stories, gee willikers. But then again, inspirations for stories come from anywhere and everywhere. Now, a lot of writers have said that. Well, where'd you come up with the idea for this story, or this story, and that story? And they say, oh, well, it came from this. It came from, because they can come from anywhere and everywhere, really. I mean, it could be as mundane as just walking down the street to, walking your dog, or getting a newspaper, picking up groceries at the store, right? or you listen to a piece of music and an idea just starts to manifest itself in one's mind. These things happen all the time from numerous people we've had on this show and some of the other shows that we've had here on Anecdote Channel. All those episodes are located in our Anecdote playlist. For those of you who are watching or listening to this right now, want to go back after you watch this incredible episode with Boyd and Beth Morrison, then you can go back and watch the other episodes. They're called replays and reruns. But for someone who's watching or listening to this and they want to become a writer themselves, what advice would you give that individual, Beth?
Well, I always say the same thing, which isn't all that helpful, which is have a brother who is a New York #1 best-selling author. So that sort of was my in, but I think Boyd can offer more concrete sort of tips.
Well, what I always say is, because I can only talk about fiction. I don't know anything about nonfiction, but really the first thing you have to do is write a complete manuscript. A lot of people I see go to writers' conferences and pitch to agents and things like that when they only have 50 pages done. And that's not going to cut it, because agents want to see that you can write a full book. Because a lot of people can write 50 pages. Can you write the other 350 pages? That's the real challenge. And so until you do that, you really have nothing to sell. And so ideas are great, but it's the execution that really matters. And so I say, when you've written a full book, that's when you go and start pitching it, and then start writing the next book. Because if you want to make this a career, you're going to have the next idea and be able to, because the publisher is going to say, okay, what's next? We want it next year for the next book release. And so you've got to start working on it right away. And so you might as well get used to that before you have a publisher.
Yeah. Don't waste time, folks. Just go right into it. Pull a Nike if you must. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said that to me the other night. It's like, what would you say? And I'm like, well, I just pulled a Nike on him and say, just do it. I'm like, okay, fine. 3 simple words, very simple phrase. You go at it. You put your story together, get it published, all that kind of stuff. Get it out there. Let people read it. Let people see it, and then you work on the next thing and just boom, knock them out.
And you'll get better as you write.
That's true. The more you write, the more you read, the better off you're gonna be, right? Because as much as you write, it's also good to read too.
Yes,
because you balance those muscles, right?
Mm-hmm. And to know what's out there, to know what the rules are that you can break.
That's very true. Rules are meant to be broken, but don't take that to every rule in the book, ladies and gentlemen. Don't break every rule in the book, because without rules, there's chaos. Speaking of which, we talked about dragon lairs, lions dens, all that stuff. This bad boy right here, the White Fortress. Goodness gracious, a priceless secret, but there's also a relentless enemy out there. Who could it be? I wonder. So the White Fortress, this series, for someone who's not familiar with it, how did this come about, and where's the White Fortress? What do we do with this one? Where does it take place? What's the schmealy dealy here?
So when Beth and I started working together, we decided that we had chosen the setting after the Black Death and during the 100 Years' War between France and England, because it was such a pivotal time in history. It was really the beginning of the end of the feudal era. And we had decided, Beth really came up with the idea of making it about a knight errant, because she had been working on a story about that from her manuscript research. And we decided to turn it into a couple errant. So really it's about a knight and now his wife in the third book, The White Fortress. And they are traveling around Europe because Gerard Fox has been excommunicated from the church unjustly. And so he is on a quest to get his name and title and reputation back. But to do that, he has to travel through various ordeals to get there. And while they're doing that, of course, because he's a good knight errant and his wife is along with him, they are solving other people's problems along the way. And so in the White Fortress, they come across a couple who are in desperate straits because their child has been abducted, and they are being blackmailed into letting invaders into their town, or their child will be killed. And so they have a terrible dilemma, and Fox and Willa start planning how they're going to try to get them out of this predicament.
That's something else. You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. So, I mean, sign me up. I'm in, because the only reference I have for, knights and during this time period specifically is the little blurbs we learned about when I was in school way back. This is way back when, because I'm very, very old. I mean, these two people here are very young and I'm quite old, but still, I remember that. And then I remember there was this movie that came out in the 2000s. I don't know if you two have seen this, but Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando
Yes.
Bloom.
That does it well.
Liam, excuse my language, the badass Neeson, and Jeremy Uncle Scar Irons. Okay, big names, big cast, big deal, big set pieces, and it's directed by the guy who made Flippin' Gladiator. Okay,
Right.
so Ridley Scott knows a thing or two about period pieces, right, Boyd? Because he's done a thing or two.
Yep.
Now, when I watch Kingdom of Heaven, I'm thinking to myself, this story that you two have shared with us kind of reminds me of Balin's struggles that he has with Orlando Bloom's character, because, he loses his wife, loses the kid, loses his land, loses his claim. He's got to fight to reclaim his family's honor, reclaim his land, all that kind of jazz. Plus, there's a lot of sword fights. And I like swords. Okay, as you can see, I got my good friends Conan the Cimmerian here. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Conan the Cimmerian by Robert E. Howard. Then you got my indie author friend Grayson Sullivan just wrote a book called The Known World of Atera, The Prisoner of Ruhak Tower, which is sword and sorcery, for those of you who are wondering what genre that it fits in particularly. I like swords. So if these book series in any way, stretch, or form contain sword fights, I'm down. Let's go.
Well, we had to give our main character, Gerard Fox, a epic sword of his own. So he has a Damascus steel blade that is called Legend. And so that plays into the story quite a bit.
See, when you say the word legend, now I'm thinking of the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's, Legend is almost its own character in the story. Boyd, should I tell my Kingdom of Heaven story?
Yes.
Okay, so here's my Kingdom of Heaven story. Years ago, I was rushing through JFK to catch a flight, and I was late. And I got on, I was, the last person on the plane. There was only one person in front of me who was trying to get on the plane. And because I was nervous, because I was so late, I was crowding him a little bit. And he turned around, and I was holding a Starbucks in my hand, and it went all over me. And the guy turns around and he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" And I looked up and I said, "You can lick it off, Leonardo DiCaprio," because it actually was Leonardo DiCaprio. And I didn't actually say that to him, but I was just sort of starstruck, and I wanted to say something to him. And I wanted to not say, "I loved you in Titanic," because every woman in the world at that time was like telling Leonardo DiCaprio if they saw him, they loved him in Titanic. So I said, "Oh, can I just tell you that I loved you in Kingdom of Heaven?" At which point he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, that was Orlando Bloom." And so years later, because I live in LA, later, I was sitting in a restaurant and I was with friends who all know this story. And they're like, Beth, look who's sitting next to you. And sure enough, in the next booth over was Orlando Bloom. And they're like, "We'll give you $1,000 if you go up and tell him you loved him in Titanic."
Oh, no. You didn't do it, did you? Did you do it?
I did not disturb Orlando Bloom. But, they're really good friends. And I can imagine that after that thing on the plane, Leonardo DiCaprio is talking to him on the phone. He's like, "Oh, my God, this idiot picked out your movie Kingdom of Heaven and thought it was me."
Oh, gosh. Oh, confusing one heartthrob for another, folks. We never thought we'd see the day on And I Quote where someone would say, "Oh, yeah, I said hi to this one guy. He wasn't even in the film that I mentioned him in." So that kind of landed flat on his face. Now, did it? It's okay. Heartthrobs get confused for others at times, I'm sure. But yeah, Orlando Bloom did deliver a really good performance, I believe, in Kingdom of Heaven. And the cast was great. I mean, Liam Neeson, Jeremy Irons, those are two heavy-handed veterans.
Yeah.
And Edward Norton behind the mask.
Yeah, Ed Norton was behind the mask, the one that was being affected. His character was affected by leprosy, hence the reason he was wearing what was the character? Was it Saladin, something like that?
Saladin.
That one. Yeah. So he's in it. You can't see him, but he does have the voice for the character. And then Eva Green's in it. I
remember that.
Which came out. By the way, Kingdom of Heaven came out 1 year shy of her being an iconic Bond girl in Casino Royale with Daniel Craig.
Wow.
So Eva Green was already a working, very hardworking actress long before the world came to know her as Vespa. Bet you gave your parents hell for that. Sorry, I've seen Casino Royale one too many times. Plus, it's one of my favorite Bond films. I don't know. I mean,
Oh, it's a great one.
It is. And a lot of
Yeah.
people have said over the years, Beth, that it is the best one out of the whole bunch. Some people still defend Connery's era, but there are people out there who have
For
said,
me, it's Casino Royale and Goldfinger.
which is fine. A lot of people have said that. I've heard, going back to originally many years ago when I was a youngling. See, there's a Star Wars reference there for you, Beth. So when I was a youngling, my dad was watching Goldfinger, and I was like, "What is this?" And he says, "It's called Goldfinger. It's a Bond movie. You want to see it?" I'm like, "This looks too cheesy and over the. I don't know what this. I don't care. I don't care." And then 1995 AD rolled around, and this film came out that turns 30 this year, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not. And it's called Goldeneye, with a good actor by the name of Pierce Brosnan, also known as Remington Steele, for those of you who watched the TV series growing up. And that movie blew me away. I came out of the theater with my dad, because my dad always took me to the theater when we were, when I was a kid. And I said, "Dad, that was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. And if this is what James Bond is, feed me more. I want it all." So we saw all the Pierce Brosnan movies when they came out in 97, 99, 2002. 2002, looking back on it now, Boyd and Beth, Die Another Day never happened. Die Another Day never happened. It's just hashtag not canon, okay? It's not canon. But Goldeneye, Tomorrow Never Dies, with Terry Hatcher, who was on Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, which is my favorite fictional character of all time, is Superman. So I got to give Terry Hatcher credit where credit is due, my good friends. And then he came out with The World Is Not Enough, and I liked it. Some people had issues with it, and that's fine. But I liked it. But Die Another Day never happened. And Pierce, that was not your fault, okay? It was not your fault. It was bad writing, bad directing, horrible CGI visual effects for the time. Anyone remember this?
Oh, yeah.
It was bad. It was bad, okay? But then 2006
Halle
rolled
Berry
around.
was bad.
Yeah, which one?
Halle Berry.
Yeah, as Jinx. Yeah,
Yeah.
as Jinx. Yeah, they were trying to do a spin-off movie with her. Did you know that?
Never worked. Yeah.
Yeah, it never came to fruition. There's all kinds of ideas on Hollywood. Some of them are good and they never come to fruition. Some of them are really bad, and we're glad that they never came to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Lots of ideas, but it's all about the execution.
That's very true. See, valid point. Once again, we are here with the two smartest people in the room, known as Boyd and Beth Morrison. And I quote, "Do not forget to like and share this. If you have any questions for him, by all means, let us know in the comments of the chat. And for joining us live on the replay, thank you for doing that." Have the both of you had any special memories from being at book signings or book conferences or conventions? Signing these books, and what has been the reaction from your fans about it?
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, Boyd and I actually just went to my first book festival a couple of weeks ago, which was the Tucson Book Festival. And it was actually really special for me because I'd been to book festivals before as a consumer, but not as a producer. And it was really different being on the other side of the fence. And it was very funny because Boyd and I, the first day, I was actually, Boyd, I can't remember, Boyd was doing something else. And so we were separated for my very first.
Yeah, I was moderating a different panel.
You were moderating a different panel and I was on a panel. And I do a lot of public speaking, so I wasn't that nervous, but it was, my first time at one of these things. And I think like everyone, you see all of those TikToks and whatnot about the book signings where like nobody shows up. And I was really worried about it. And so we were kind of in the room and we were getting set up, and I went outside to get some air because it was a little warm in the room, and there was no one in the room. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be so embarrassing. My very first thing at a book festival. And I walked out the door to get some air. There was a line of people all the way up the stairway, going all around the balcony. And I said to the other person, I was like, I wonder who they're waiting for. And they're like, they're waiting for you. I said, that can't possibly be right. And sure enough, 100 or 130 people, I think, filed into the room, and they actually had to cut it off. So that was a really special experience for me, it was a great audience. They were so interested, and it was so much fun to talk about the books and actually not have Boyd there so I could say whatever I wanted. It was really fun.
And that I happened to be in there. So it was standing room only. But I've had the opposite experience too. I was at a writers conference where we were doing a book signing, and I was there with Clive Cussler. And it was really, we were in a hallway kind of down the side. And so we were kind of off the main area. And I'm sitting next to Clive, who's sold 100 million books, literally. And we were sitting between Lincoln Child, who writes the Preston and Child Relic. You probably remember that movie. And then on the other side was Scott Turow, who wrote Presumed Innocent. And we were sitting there, nobody in line for us. Probably combined, they'd sold 300 million books, and nobody was there. And so after about 10 minutes of sitting there and signing no books, Clive just turned to me and said, I'm going to go to the bar and get a drink. So no matter how famous you are, that still can happen.
Ah, I see. Different experiences for everybody. Understandably so, but congrats on those who have come out to see you both, and get copies of your books, get them signed, have a bit of a Q&A with you, have a conversation with you, which is always good. And what was it, Beth? Your first experience out of the gate, and you had a line of people around the block. It was almost like a blockbuster film on opening weekend, 1977. Sorry, I'm dating myself again. But with that being said, I'm sure this thought or this process was probably going on in the back of your mind.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah! Yes! Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, just giving yourself high fives, going crazy like Walter White and his crew over there. Yeah, must have felt pretty good because in certain cases during certain areas of life can be good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That definitely. Just thought I'd give you a shout out for that, Beth, because that's pretty cool that you had a line around the street, line around the block. That's fantastic. The more the merrier, as one might say.
Yeah. Tucson Book Festival, highly recommend it. I could not believe how big that book festival was.
Yeah, I think there were 140,000.
Is that Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah, it's in Tucson, Arizona. 140,000 people that weekend.
Excuse me, a baking powder? Did you say 140,000 people jam packed into a convention center?
No, it was outdoor in the University of Arizona.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
outdoors in where the University of Arizona is located. Good Lord!
Yeah,
you didn't have to see
March, so the weather was pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say it can get quite
HO
right? Yeah, bring plenty of water, folks. Did you run into any Arizona Diamondbacks while you were out there?
I didn't see any.
No,
either of the baseball player or the snake kind.
Or the snake. Yeah. I was asking for the creature, not so much the baseball players. I'm sorry. I'm not really a big sports fan, but that's one of the few things I know about Arizona. Oh, there's Arizona Diamondbacks and maybe Cardinals or something. I don't know. One of the two. I apologize. By the way, there were some questions coming in the chat, so let's go to these. Brian says, how long does it typically take you from idea to completed manuscript?
Longer than you think.
Really?
Yeah, I would say from beginning of the gestation of the idea to having the final page proofs going off to the printer, it's usually about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Because we basically have first of all, we have to decide where the next book is going to be set. So for instance, this for the White Fortress, Boyd said, where's next? And I'm like, well, neither of us have ever been to Croatia. How about Croatia? So we get, a trip to Croatia. And then the next book that Boyd and I are writing right now happens in southern Spain, which was just awesome to go on that trip. So so we kind of come up with the basic idea for the story and where it's going to happen. Then we go do our research trip and kind of get ideas from being on set, as it were. And then we come back and we start the actual writing process. And Boyd taught me a term, a plotter or a flyer. What is it? Is it a
pantser or a plotter?
A pantser, right? Because you do it by the seat of your pants. So a pantser or a plotter, and we're plotters because I think if you're working together, you really have to kind of plot something. So we basically plot not like every detail in the book, but we have a really good architecture moving forward. And then we just detail it as we move forward chapter by chapter. But yeah, we met somebody at the that Tucson Book Festival who was very impressive. She writes a book every 2 months. Every 2 months.
Yeah. But they're shorter and they
take place in this era. I mean, part of what takes us so long is all the research, figuring out exactly how things would have happened. What would a toll cost? What would they be wearing in southern Spain at this time? What kinds of political structures are there? We do a lot of research for our novels.
I see. Okay. All right. Understandably so. I mean, 1300s that's it's a lot of history, for sure. I mean, it's not like you can just walk up to your friendly neighborhood Grail Knight who's been sitting there for 600 years guarding the Holy Grail and say, "Hey, what's been going on the last, 700 years?" Well, he'll just look at you and say, "You're strangely dressed for a knight." Not exactly. Sorry. First indie film I ever saw was Last Crusade. Hence the reason I respect the Crusades period so much, and I'm fascinated by the history of it. That's why I like the movie Kingdom of Heaven so much, is because it took place during the Crusades. Because there aren't really many period pieces or dramatic television series that take place during the Crusades, because it's a lot of work.
It's expensive to put all
Yeah.
of that together.
Just the horse budget would be tremendous.
Yeah.
Oh, well, horseback. Yeah. Well, yeah, horse is this, horse is that. You're right. I'm not going to argue that point. But yeah, no, it's a fascinating time period for sure. So, okay, about a year or so. And then David Mamina is here. He has a question that says, what do you think dictates how many people came down to support you guys? Because that sounds amazing from some of the stories you told us earlier.
Well, I think the fact was there were 140,000 people there. So, given that amount of people, 100 people being interested in one particular, this panel was about historical fiction. And so I have to admit, I wasn't the only person on it. There were two other authors there. And so I think it was the first day of the conference. It was the very first panel. And so it got a really big turnout. But I think historical fiction is a genre that really people are drawn to. The other two panelists in my particular panel, one of them had written something that was set, I think, in the 1960s in Italy. And the third one was even closer to now. So I was really the furthest back historical, which Boyd and I often are. But I think there's just a real love of reading. If you think about Tucson, it's a place where a lot of people retire. And so you're going to have a lot of people who grew up reading, loved reading, and now just have more time for reading now that they're retired. And so we had a lot of people who were just interested in book culture, which was awesome.
Fascinating. Great question, David Mamina. David Mamina is a good friend of the show, good friend of the channel. Check him out at maminabooks.com. He writes dark fantasy, gothic horror stuff. So if you're into dark fantasy, check out maminabooks.com. Good friend of ours from the great state of New York. Yeah, I think David, didn't you tell me you were from what was it, Long Island? I think. Yeah, Long Island, New York. So there you go. New Yorkers in the studio somewhere around here. I don't know. I can't see him. It's called virtual, folks. Get with it. Do you have any ideas for? I mean, you got this stuff going on right now, which is great. Do you think you're going to explore a different genre of writing when you guys are done this series? Or do you think you're just going to stick with historical fiction for the foreseeable future?
Well, I have a lot more ideas for other thriller novels. I've written a screenplay that I hope to actually produce and act in, because I'm also an actor.
Ooh.
And all of my books prior to the ones that I wrote with Beth are contemporary thrillers. And so I think I will also go back to writing some of those as well. And then Beth has some ideas for nonfiction books.
Yeah, so I'm a scholar during the day. So I'm a Senior Curator of Manuscripts at the Getty Museum here in Los Angeles. And so I have 3 books that I'm working on right now professionally for things I'm doing. Just to do a shout out for the Getty, in 2028, during the Olympics, I will have a big international loan show up at the Getty on the theme of chivalry in the Middle Ages. So we'll be leaning into all the horseback riding, the saber and épée events, the bow and arrow events to really tie in with what's happening with the Olympics. So if you're out here for the Olympics in 28, please do come by the Getty and see that show. So I'm already working on that exhibition catalog. I'm also working on a couple of other nonfiction books related to medieval manuscripts, which is my area of specialty. And then I have been working a little bit on an idea. One of my other loves besides medieval manuscripts is dogs. And I've written professionally about animals in medieval manuscripts. I did a show a number of years ago on bestiaries, which is the kind of book in the Middle Ages that's an encyclopedia of animals that includes dogs and horses and hippopotamuses and unicorns and phoenixes and all those kinds of great things. And dragons, of course. So in any case, I'm thinking of kind of combining my two loves of art and dogs and doing a book that is tentatively titled The History of the World in 100 Dogs. And dogs, of course, in artworks go all the way back to the beginning. The earliest artworks we have are cave paintings. And because dogs were the first animal that was domesticated by humans, they've been our companions for the whole history of humanity. So I think it'd be fun to combine those two loves and work on that project. So lots of things for the future.
Just man's best friend.
Yeah.
And then and then also there's reference to this because there's so many Disney movies that involve friendly neighborhood dogs. Oliver and Company, anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Oliver and Company, 101 Dalmatians. Although 101 Dalmatians is too much for me. I have enough trouble just dealing with one. But what was the other one? There was The Fox and the Hound. There was, how many? Lady and the Tramp. Let's not forget about Lady and the Tramp, right? Yeah. Because wasn't that like one of the earliest, trendsetters for happy dogs? Was it or romantic couples in movies that just happen to be dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget Goofy and Pluto.
Well, Goofy and Pluto more like a bromance than anything else, but maybe there was something going on there. I don't know. A Goofy movie just turned 30 this year. If anyone remembers a Goofy movie from 1995 in Powerline Tour, we all saw it in 95. At least I was there for it. Stand Out, which is one of the best songs ever put together. David Amina says, "Don't forget about All Dogs Go to Heaven." Yeah. Let's not forget about that one, David Amina. Thank you, sir. Grayson the Overcomer says, "Always good to hear from fellow fantasy writers." Hence the reason, by the way, Grayson is this young man right here who wrote this. So there you go. That's Grayson. He says, "It's always good to hear from fellow fantasy writers like yourselves." Look at that. Everyone's getting cred around here. Way to go. Grayson, congratulations on the release of your first book here, buddy. It's on Amazon. You can find it there. If you like sword and sorcery, if you're into that sort of stuff, just throwing that out there. Wow. So many plans, so much to do, so little time. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
Man.
I always have way too many plans and very, very ambitious.
It goes back to what I remember hearing many years ago. Once again, this goes back to my knowledge of film. So much to do, so little time. So little time, right? Gotta make the most of the time you got. Now, if someone approached you both and said, "Hey, we really like this series with White Fortress and the Lawless Land and all this stuff. We want to adapt it." Would you be okay with them adapting your series into a live-action or animated series on Netflix there, Boyd and Beth?
Absolutely. Yeah, as long as I get a speaking role in the series.
All right.
And I'd like to be the historical advisor.
Yes. Yes. Any ideas of who you would want to see cast in this thing?
Oh, it takes so long to get adaptation made. I mean, Reacher just came out as a series, and the books... the first book was written in 97, I think.
Oh, gosh.
And so Alan Ritchson, who plays Jack Reacher in the series...
built like a house.
Yeah, except he was 14 at the time that the series started. So, what I say is whoever is going to star in our series is probably in elementary school right now.
It may take a minute for this to get adapted. However, I mean, I know it's a lot of historical research and putting together the horses, the costumes, and everything. If we're a live action series, it's a totally different story. But if it's animated, you can have a lot of fun with that. You can have a lot of fun with who may or may not be cast.
Yeah,
right. As the voice,
that would be great
in some of these roles. I mean, do you have any voice actors in mind? If it was translated into an animated series, do you have any voice actors you want to throw in the mix?
For the villain, I'd really love is Patrick Stewart.
Oh,
He would be so good.
Picard and Professor Xavier? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we have an evil cardinal in the Lawless Land, and he would be perfect if it was made into an animated.
Yeah.
Well, he'd be perfect if it was an actual series too. So.
Yeah, we just want him.
Yeah.
You just want Patrick Stewart all to yourselves.
Yep.
Don't let the other fans who've only been fans of his for over 30, 40 years get a chance to sit down and talk. No, you guys get first dibs, right? Boyd, Beth, you get first dibs. Okay, fine. No, that's a great casting choice because he's my favorite captain from Star Trek. I mean, I think his role as Xavier is iconic. I think it's iconic. And it's funny because when we first heard that this movie X-Men was going to be developed in the late 90s, early 2000s, the first person that came to my mind was, well, if you're going to cast anybody Xavier, you should just cast the guy from Star Trek because he's already bald. He's already bald. You could put him in a wheelchair. It works.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Hollywood listened to reason, and they casted the X-Men films pretty darn well. I mean, have you seen a lot of the X-Men?
I've seen them all.
You've seen them all. Which one's your favorite, though? That's my question.
Oh, my favorite X-Men together is
Yeah.
X-Men 2.
Ooh,
But I think my
X-Men.
favorite one featuring X-Men is Logan.
Mm,
That's an amazing movie.
that's a dark movie, man. That is a deep, emotional, hard-hitting film, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Very,
My
very.
my boyfriend took me to see Logan, but didn't tell me what it was. And afterwards, he saw the look on my face. He's like, "Yes, I know that the next movie we have to see is a Jane Austen flick."
Did you end up doing that? Did you see a Jane Austen adaptation or movie or whatever it was afterwards?
We didn't. I did make him go see a movie. It wasn't a Jane Austen one, but it was definitely one he didn't want to go to.
Do you remember the name of it? Just
I
for
don't remember what
curiosity's
it was,
sake.
but I did get my payback.
and then he made her go see a Fast and Furious movie.
Is that
Yeah,
what he did?
which I slept through.
Yeah, I'm going to save you some pain and suffering because for me anyway, and for those of you who are watching and listening to this right now, if you're a fan of this property, Fast and Furious, it's fine. For me, it ended with Furious 7 when Paul Walker passed away while they were filming, right?
Yeah.
While they were filming. But in all honesty, outside of Furious 7, which was Brian O'Connor / Paul Walker's swan song, which I think was handled very well. After his unfortunate passing, by the way, R.I.P. to Paul Walker, great actor, young actor, gone too soon. Fast and Furious 6 was its peak, in my opinion. After the sixth one, Beth, it went downhill and it jumped the shark.
Well,
And
it has
my
my
favorite
favorite
line-
quote ever, right, Boyd? Speaking
Yeah,
of
my
Andor
favorite line
quotes.
is from Fast and Furious 6 when Vin Diesel goes up and saves Michelle Rodriguez and they land on this car going 60 miles an hour and she goes, "How did you know that car would be there to break our fall?" Like they had landed on a truck full of mattresses and marshmallows.
Yeah, that Hollywood magic, suspension of disbelief, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It happens in movie theaters all the flippin' time. But yeah, Fast and Furious 6 is a good one, boy. That's the best. To me, that's the best. I mean, that one's pretty darn good because you get Hobbs coming back, saying, "Hey, I know you guys got away with the money from the fifth one, but I need your help with this because there's an evil worse crew out there than you, and we got to stop them, and this is the way to do it." And then they just ruined it with bringing in Jason Statham's transporter and saying, "Dominic Toretto, you don't know who I am. You're about to." And then he hangs up the phone, and that's the cue for Furious 7. And I'm like, no, you should have ended it, son. They got their house back at the end of Furious 6, Boyd. They got the money, they got the girl, they got the kid. It's like, just let them right up into the sunset.
Nope.
Not when there's money to be made.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Beth. Not
Yeah.
when there's lots of this
Yeah.
to be made. And they're going to milk the cash cow for all it's worth, right, Boyd?
Yeah, $1 billion talks.
Yeah. Isn't Fast 11 and Fast 12 taking place in outer space? Because that's really the only thing
They
that
already had one
They did.
that took place in Beth saw that one.
Yeah, that's the one I slept through.
Are you referring to Fast 10? Is that Fast?
Yeah,
10?
they sent a Pontiac Fiero into outer space.
Oh my God. What is wrong with you people in Hollywood? What are you doing to me? It's terrible stuff. I'm sorry, but David Mamina says every writer's dream is a film adaptation true to their original source material. Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah, well, that's why we need Beth to be there as a historical consultant.
That's right. To be authentic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Be there for every day, every meeting, every session.
And I need to be on set in all of these fabulous places.
And she needs to be on set in every single one of the locations, right? With all the costumes, all the
Make sure they're doing it right.
Actors, the stunt coordinators.
Hey,
all
Beth,
that kind of
you
thing.
know who could play the brutal English lord?
Yeah.
We could either have Orlando Bloom or Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes.
Either
That's
one
right.
would be great.
They would be great. You're right.
Why not both? You can get both two different roles. I mean,
Because
they
you
could
can't
play
tell them apart anyway. So
two different roles. Maybe they could play a set of brothers in the movie. I don't know. I mean, hypothetically, I actually just saw Orlando a few weeks ago at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. He was there with his Lord of the Rings cast members. Liv Tyler, John Rhys Davies was also there, and Sean Astin. If anyone remembers who Sean Astin is, he was in the building, and I had a chance to speak with both Liv Tyler, and I spoke with John Rhys Davies, and I walked up to Liv, and I said, Liv, I got to tell you something. I know this all the stuff you've done is great, but I really liked your performance in the Incredible Hulk, because the Incredible Hulk, to me is a criminally underrated comic book movie, and it's one of the better MCU movies from the early days, in my opinion. And I tell her this, she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. I haven't, I really appreciate that." Yeah, I think some people had a divisive or different reaction to it just because Edward Norton had a lot of creative input and he wrote it and things of that nature. I said, "Yeah, but Liv, the movie's great, okay, and you did a fantastic job. So I just want to let you know that." And she says, "Oh, thank you so much." So, and by the way, Liv Tyler hasn't aged a day in 25 years. I mean, ever since she was Arwen in Lord of the Rings, which I'm sure you two have seen numerous times. She has not aged a day, Boyd, Beth. She hasn't. Honestly, she hasn't.
Well, she was just in the latest Captain America movie.
Well, they brought Betty Ross back. Yes, the character from Incredible Hulk, which we haven't seen in 15 flipping years. So you people just... Hollywood just irritates me to certain degrees. But the other thing was, John Rhys Davies, I asked him, what was it I got to ask you, John, what was it like shooting the scene where you punched the guy in the face with a newspaper in Last Crusade? Because Last Crusade is my favorite indie film, with all due respect. Oh, it is? Okay, so you know where I'm going with this, right?
It's
Boyd.
hard to beat Sean Connery together with Harrison Ford.
It's James Bond being, James Bond Jr.'s dad. Because originally Spielberg and Lucas wanted to make a Bond film, but Spielberg couldn't do it.
Yep.
He couldn't get the rights, or he couldn't, manage his way into the cinematic universe of James Bond. So what did he do? George Lucas says, "I have this really cool idea for a character. It's called Indiana Smith."
And so what did you ask about the newspaper?
I said, what was it like? How many takes was it for you to punch that guy? Did you have to do it numerous times, or did you just get it right on the first take? And he says, well, what you have to do is you take one or two places out of the newspaper to make it a little lighter. And then you take your thumb, you got to make sure it's sharp like this. And when you punch him, you got to make sure you give it a really good follow through when you're punching the actor in the face. And everything that was coming out of John's mouth, I couldn't understand half of what he was saying. Not that I couldn't understand, but like the story and how he tells it is just sort of strange to me. But it doesn't matter to me because it's John Rhys Davies. The guy's been around for 50 years. He's been doing acting for 50 plus years, right? Boyd.
Yeah.
He's an international treasure. He really is. And so that's what he said. And he said to me, "Yeah, we did it in like one take, if not two." And I said, "That's great," because that's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, he was
criminally looking up at Brody.
Destiny.
Yeah.
Why he didn't go along on the adventure, I don't know why.
Yeah. I have no idea. But at least he gives us the "give them hell, Indiana Jones," and that's all we get. And I'm like, come on, man. Could have done more than that. But that wasn't his fault. That was a creative decision, not his.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, no, he was very nice. So if you ever get a chance to see any of the cast members from Lord of the Rings, I mean, I don't know. Are you Lord of the Rings fans?
Yeah.
You do, yeah, you like, all right. Just that curiosity, because you do have swords and knights and all this other stuff in your books. I'm thinking, a
lot of fantasy novels and series are based on the Middle Ages.
They all are.
No.
Essentially.
Oh, fair enough. What was your favorite Lord of the Rings film, Boyd, Beth? Do you have a favorite one of the three?
For me, it's Two Towers.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Two Towers for you too, Beth?
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. I was always a Fellowship of the Ring fan myself. Just because of the whole setup and the introduction to the world and the characters.
Good choice.
Yeah. Obviously the council.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with any of them. That's one of the best trilogies ever made.
It is. And it's hard to go wrong with the council scene, with the Fellowship being formed and everyone figuring out, what are we going to do with this thing? Well, Gimli wants to destroy it with his first axe. It breaks, and then all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, he's like, "And my axe." But it's like, because someone wrote in the comment section of YouTube, like, didn't he just smash his axe like 2 seconds ago? Where did he find the other one?
He's got a whole room full of axes somewhere.
Do you think Gimli cared? Yeah, he probably has a room full of. Do you think so? Probably. But yeah, no, it was great. It was a nice little meet and greet that we had at our nation's capital of DC, meeting the cast. And I look forward to seeing John Rhys Davies again in 6 weeks at Fan Expo in Philadelphia, because I'm going to have him sign my Last Crusade DVD.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Boyd, Beth. Yeah, I'm going to have him sign that because, like I said, favorite movie of the trilogy, because there were no sequels after that. And
you're named after the dog?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What does this always mean? This Junior. That's his name. Henry Jones Jr. I like Indiana. We named the dog Indiana. It's so endlessly quotable, Boyd. It's so I'm telling you, it's so quotable. Speaking of which, we did a watch long for both Temple of Doom and Last Crusade last year, because Last Crusade turned 35, for those of you who are wondering, and then Temple of Doom turned 40.
Wow.
And then next year, yep, it's okay. Listen, we're all young here at heart, Beth. It's right. Okay. It's okay.
I was thinking about when you were talking about the release of the original Star Wars, and I saw it in the theater.
Well, that was in 77. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember
was
waiting
there.
in line to go
Yep.
see it.
How many times did you both see it in 77? Did you see it numerous times or just the one time?
I'm
And
sure
we
many
probably,
times.
but I really was, yeah. I do remember seeing it though,
Mm-hmm.
because it
Yeah.
was so, there are very few movies where I was totally blown away. I remember Star Wars and The Matrix, because I was waiting in line for a different movie to go
Mhm.
see the night I saw The Matrix, and
Oh.
it was sold out. I
Really?
think it was that Harrison Ford movie. It was terrible, about a plane crash or something. But in any case, that was sold out. And my friend and I were already there, and we're like, well, what is starting soon? And they said this movie, The Matrix. And we're like, okay, we've never heard of it. And so we sat down and the movie started. We're like, whoa.
Yeah, for me, that the experience, I did have that experience with The Matrix, but when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, it was the same kind of thing. I just went to the movie theater and there's this animated movie called Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Okay, I'll go in and see that. And so I watched the first 5 minutes, and it was a cartoon. It was funny. And then he walks off the cartoon into the real world, and I'm
off the set. Yeah.
What is going on here? Because I had never seen the trailer. I didn't know what was going on. So I was blown away.
You went in cold.
Yeah. And that's impossible now. You can't go in cold to a movie anymore.
Yeah, that's and we actually discussed this the other last 1 week or a few nights ago on one of the other shows. I said, you know what? There are no surprises anymore. There are no surprises at all, because all the trailers give away all the spoilers. Someone's going to be on set in the background with their phone, and they're going to snap a shot of the actor, actress in their costume, and they're going to post it on social media. And we're thinking to ourselves, why can't you save this for when we actually go to the theater? Because in my opinion,
promote the movie,
right? But in my opinion, as far as marketing goes, which I know will never happen because I'm not in charge. But if I were in charge of Hollywood and marketing, I would say, here's what you do: put out one poster, one teaser trailer, one full trailer. That's 2.5 minutes, right, Boyd? And then after that, that's it. Nothing, no more, no less. Put out 3 pieces of marketing, and that's it. Let the audience go in, see it for themselves. If they like it, they will let you know. If they don't like it, you're going to find out with their dollar sign. So.
I'm always bummed when I go to a Mission Impossible movie, and during the opening credit, they play all of these scenes from the movie you're about to watch. And so I always close my eyes during that segment because I don't want them to be given away.
Yeah, it's beyond ridiculous. It's just there are no surprises on Hollywood anymore. That's what I hate. But if your stories ever get adapted as an animated or live action, we'll try to keep everything at bay so we can go in cold and see it with a fresh pair of eyes, because that helps from a viewer's perspective. Amina says, what an impressive and enlightening discussion. You guys were absolutely fantastic. Enjoy your holidays. Oh,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
David, you're the man. Wish you the best. Check him out if you haven't so already. Mamina Books. He's got a lot of great things coming his way very soon. He's doing a couple of book signings too, I believe, in the great state of New York, New Jersey, somewhere around there. So check all that stuff. But yeah, no, it's there are no surprises anymore. But you know what? The best thing is that this episode was in no way, shape, or form a lack of surprises, because we got a lot of surprising fun facts from people going in to see one film that was sold out. Then they go in and see The Matrix, and they say, "What is real? How do you define real, Neo?" And The Matrix turned 25 last year, Beth. Not to make you feel any younger, but it turned 25 last year. We did a watch along for it. If you want to go back and watch our reactions to that, it's there for your viewing pleasure.
It's amazing that they let you go in and see it when you were 5 years old, Beth.
I know. Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, you mentioned the horrible plane disaster movie with Harrison Ford. Are you referring to Air Force One?
No. That's a great movie.
Because I was going to say, watch what you say about the president of the United States.
I've watched that movie. No, it was some horrible that I did see later where he and his wife was killed in a plane accident, and he met his husband. It was really bad.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
What
Kristen Scott Thomas played the woman.
It was so bad.
Yeah, but I can't remember the title of it, boy. Do you remember the title of it? Doggone it. All right, but I know what you're saying. For a second there, I'm like, is she referring to Air Force One, one of the greatest action adventure movies of all time?
Great.
Because I was going to say, Harrison Ford is the president of the United States, and he actually ran for a second term. He just did it in Captain America: Brave New World. He became the president all over again, which is very rare. Very, very rare. But,
Get off my plane.
I know, seriously. I mean, isn't that one of the best comeback or, movie quotes ever, Boyd, don't you think?
Yeah.
From the president of the United States.
Gary Oldman was awesome in that.
And it's funny because years later, he would play the good guy as Commissioner Gordon in the Batman series with Christian pale. Because there's been so many different Batmans over the years. I mean, let's not forget about that, right? There's been 6 actors to play Bond in its 60-year plus history, right, Boyd? And then you get, this character, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so many Batmen.
Yeah.
So many Batmen. It's amazing. Speaking of knights, I mean, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but Val Kilmer, he played a bit of a knight/heroic character in Willow.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So let's not forget about him. By the way, R.I.P. Val Kilmer. Because you can always be our Huckleberry, Val.
Right.
There, see what I did there?
Mhm.
Impressive stuff. With that being said, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to both Boyd and Beth Morrison for being our guests on this episode of And I Quote. This has been educational, as one might say, right? Educational, I think, is the appropriate term. Boyd and Beth, it's been great seeing you here. Now, if someone wants to know more about either one of you, where can they follow you on social media, Boyd Morrison?
I'm on social media at Boyd Morrison Writer Boyd Morrison Writer on Instagram and Facebook.
And same for me, except Beth Morrison Writer.
Just switch a few letters of a third person's name and you'll find it there. Very simple. Good news, fans. For those of you wondering, you can follow both of these incredible people. The links are located in the description of this episode, so check those out. Buy a copy of The White Fortress, why don't you? Take it back to the times 1500 with knights, shining armor, swords. Maybe you can read the book with Liam Neeson or Jeremy Irons narrating it. I don't know. Maybe Orlando Bloom can do the audiobook. I have no idea. But is the audiobook is out now, isn't it? Or is it
There
not?
is an audiobook, yeah.
Okay, so you couldn't get Orlando to clear his schedule for this one?
He was pretty busy with the sequel to Titanic.
That's cool. That's cool. You know what, Beth? I tell you what, when the next one comes out, he can narrate the 4th book. What do you say?
All right, we'll try to get him.
Does that sound like a great idea to you?
Yeah.
I think it would work. I think it would work beautifully, honestly. I think it's going to be a smash hit. As if these first 3 books within the series aren't smash hits enough. It's just one of those things. But it's great to have you both here. I'm going to talk to you here again momentarily, so stick around. Don't go anywhere. My name is Ryan of And I Quote Channel. Follow us across all forms of social media, simply at And I Quote Channel. Links are located in the description below. They're also located in my link tree, which you can find once again in the description. We are on the road to 5,000 subscribers on this very channel that you're watching and listening to right now. Once we reach that historic milestone, we're going to have a live stream that will include special giveaways that you, the person who's watching or listening to this, are going to be eligible to. And we also have merch. We have hoodies. We have shirts. We have stickers that you can add to your water bottles or your notebooks. We also have notebooks available to you, stationery, a couple of throw pillows, that kind of really good stuff. Links are in our social media bio and in my link tree, so you can check out those links there. This has been a lot of fun. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when the videos go up or they go live. Remember, life is better when you're supporting indie creators from all over the world. Take a look.
Trellin of Ulia is a cursed man, and cursed men are dangerous. He has traveled the known world seeking a way to lift his curse. So far, he has not found what he is looking for. When Trellin arrives in the city of Anshi, in the nation of Paraba, he meets a cold reception. The desert nation is unforgiving. Its people have proven untrustworthy, and the locals have no love for foreigners. Now, a wealthy stranger offers to lift Trellin's curse for a price, and he must make a choice. Seek a solution elsewhere, or risk imprisonment in the Tower of Ruhak, a place from whence no man has ever escaped. The known world of Atera, the prisoner of Ruhak Tower. Now available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
Good morning. Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.